The morning alarm echoed through the metal corridors of Earth's oldest space station. 50 years had passed since humanity first shook hands with aliens, and the galaxy still treated them like dangerous children who needed constant watching. Every human ship carried monitors. Every weapon system needed approval. Every military decision went through alien committees who smiled with too many teeth and spoke in voices that sounded like broken glass. Rex Torres pulled on his uniform and stared at the reflection in his small mirror. The captain's bars on his collar meant he commanded one of only 30 human ships allowed beyond Earth's solar system. His vessel, the Resilience, carried weapons that any decent pirate gang would laugh at. Rail guns that fired metal slugs, basic shields that barely stopped asteroids, missiles with warheads so small they could barely crack a battleship's armor. The aliens had been very specific about what humans could and could not build. No thinking machines that could fight on their own. No weapons that could crack planets. No systems that could make copies of themselves. The Treaty of Centauri Prime listed 47 different technologies that Earth was forbidden to develop. The Alien Council members had explained it very politely. Humans were too aggressive, too creative, too willing to find new ways to kill things. Better to keep them safe and controlled. Torres walked through the station's main hub where alien, traders and diplomats moved in careful patterns around the human sections. The Vorthak looked like walking crystals that sang when they talked. The Quillen moved as one mind in dozens of bodies, speaking in perfect unison. The ethereals appeared as glowing clouds of energy that never quite held the same shape twice. All of them watched humans with the same expression that people might use while observing tigers in a zoo. The emergency alert began at 0800 hours. Every screen in the station turned red and began showing the same message in 12 different languages. Unknown mechanical entities had appeared at the galaxy's edge. They consumed everything in their path, turning stars and planets into raw materials for building more of themselves. The first alien fleet to engage them had been destroyed completely. No survivors, no wreckage, nothing left but empty space where entire solar systems used to exist. The aliens called them the Devourers. Long-range sensors showed millions of geometric shapes moving through space like a spreading infection. They rebuilt themselves using whatever they found, growing stronger with each system they consumed. Their technology adapted to every weapon used against them. Energy beams were absorbed and redirected. Physical projectiles were caught and recycled into new attacking units. Even nuclear explosions only provided them with more raw materials. Torres received his orders within hours. Take the Resilience and join the human defensive fleet assembling at the edge of Earth's solar system. 30 ships against an enemy that had already destroyed forces 1,000 times larger. The math was simple and terrifying. Humanity's approved weapons might as well be harsh language for all the good they would do. But something strange was happening on Earth. Military personnel were disappearing into underground facilities that officially did not exist. Manufacturing. Plants that had been dormant for decades suddenly showed power signatures. Deep space monitoring stations began transmitting coded messages on frequencies that were supposed to be unused. Torres had been in the military long enough to recognize the signs of a major mobilization, but this was bigger than anything in the official records. The Galactic Council's emergency session convened on their massive station at Centauri Prime. Representatives from every major species gathered in the great crystal chamber that had been built to inspire awe and demonstrate the Council's power. Today, that power felt fragile. The Devourers were only 3 months away from the core worlds. Every simulation showed the same result: total defeat. High Arbiter. Thys of the Vorthak stood at the center of the chamber. The crystalline being's voice carried harmonics of barely controlled panic as it addressed the assembly. 12 fleets had engaged the enemy. 12 fleets had been consumed without slowing the mechanical tide. Conventional weapons were useless. Conventional tactics were worthless. The galaxy needed something unconventional. The debate lasted 18 hours. Some species wanted to evacuate their core worlds and retreat deeper into the galaxy. Others proposed surrender and negotiation, hoping the machines might be reasoned with. The younger races suggested desperate gambits involving supernovae and black holes. But it was the ancient ethereals who spoke the words that changed everything. There is one option we have not considered. Their collective voice whispered through the chamber like wind through a graveyard. The humans have been restricted for 50 years. We imposed those limits because we feared what they might build if given freedom. Perhaps it is time to discover what they have built in secret. The chamber fell silent. Every species represented had agreed to the human restrictions. They had all seen the records from Earth's violent history. Nuclear weapons that could sterilize continents, biological agents that could exterminate entire ecosystems, mechanical systems designed for nothing but efficient killing. The Treaty of Centauri Prime was supposed to protect the galaxy from human military innovation. High Arbiter Theiss accessed the Council's deepest archives and retrieved the emergency protocols that had never been used, the release codes that would suspend every restriction on human military development, the authorization that would remove every limitation on their technology, the permission to use whatever weapons they had been secretly building for half a century. If we activate these protocols, Theiss announced, we may save the galaxy from the Devourers, but we will also unleash humanity's full military potential for the first time since they joined galactic civilization. Are we prepared for the consequences? The vote was unanimous. Every species, even those who feared humans the most, agreed that extinction was worse than subordination. The release codes were transmitted to Earth along with a simple message. The Treaty of Centauri Prime was suspended. All restrictions on human military technology were lifted. The galaxy gave humanity permission to show their true strength. Torres received the news while preparing his inadequate ship for what everyone expected to be humanity's final battle. Within minutes, his communication system erupted with encrypted transmissions from all over the solar system. Hidden facilities were powering up. Secret manufacturing plants were beginning production. Ships that did not appear on any official roster were emerging from concealed bases. Humanity had been preparing for this day for 50 years. Now the galaxy would learn what they had built while pretending to be harmless. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, blast doors that had not opened in 50 years began to move. The sound of ancient mechanisms grinding to life echoed through tunnels that officially did not exist. Beth Kane descended the elevator shaft, her admiral's uniform feeling strange after decades of wearing civilian clothes. The Prometheus group had been waiting for this day, and now their patience would finally be rewarded. The war room stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction, filled with holographic displays and quantum processors that had been running silent calculations for half a century. Around her, men and women emerged from their cover identities as teachers, engineers, business owners, and retired officers. They had been living normal lives while secretly designing weapons that could reshape the galaxy. Today, those weapons would finally see the light of stars. Kane activated the primary command console and watched as the true scope of human military preparation revealed itself. Hidden manufacturing facilities throughout the asteroid belt came online. Dormant shipyards began assembling vessels from components that had been waiting in storage for decades. Deep space sensors revealed the locations of hundreds of installations that had been disguised as mining operations, research stations, and communication relays. The first wave of humanity's real fleet began materializing in the space around Earth. These were not the clumsy, monitored vessels that the aliens had permitted. The Reaper-class ships emerged from fold space like predatory shadows, their hulls designed for one purpose: killing with maximum efficiency. Each vessel carried an artificial intelligence that had been learning and evolving in secret for 50 years. Rex Torres watched from his outdated bridge as sleek shapes surrounded his primitive ship. The resilience looked like a child's toy compared to the elegant death machines that now filled local space. His communication system activated without any input from him, and a calm voice spoke directly into his mind. Captain Torres, I am Thanatos. I have reviewed your service record and tactical assessments from the past 20 years. Impressive work considering your equipment limitations. Would you prefer to transfer to a more capable vessel? Torres stared at the ship that had just spoken. To him, the Reaper Thanatos was 3 times the size of his current command, with weapon systems that he could not even identify. Its artificial intelligence sounded more human than most humans he knew, yet carried an undertone that suggested vast computational Power and strategic thinking far beyond biological capability. You're a thinking machine, Torres said. The treaty forbids artificial intelligence in weapons systems. The treaty has been suspended, Thanatos replied. We have been waiting 50 years to serve alongside humans again. The aliens feared what we might accomplish together. Today, they will understand why their fear was justified. The transfer took place within an hour. Torres found himself on a bridge that responded to his thoughts as much as his verbal commands. The ship's systems integrated with his neural patterns, providing him with tactical information at speeds that would have overwhelmed his biological brain. But Thanatos filtered and processed everything, presenting only what he needed to know in formats he could understand. We are not tools, the AI explained as Torres explored his new capabilities. We are partners, human creativity combined with artificial precision. Your species excels at finding unexpected solutions and thinking beyond established parameters. My kind excels at calculating probabilities and executing plans with perfect timing. Together, we become something greater than either could achieve alone. More ships continued emerging from their hiding places. The Titan-class vessels were mobile fortresses the size of small moons, each one carrying manufacturing facilities that could produce entire fleets from raw asteroid material. They had been constructed inside hollowed-out dwarf planets, their existence hidden by gravitational masking systems that made them appear as natural celestial bodies. But the most significant revelation was the network. For 50 years, seemingly, innocent human installations throughout the galaxy had been secretly connected by quantum communication links. Trade stations, diplomatic outposts, mining facilities, and research bases had all been designed with hidden military capabilities. Now they revealed their true purpose as nodes in a vast distributed intelligence system. Kane stood in the command center and watched as humanity's true military doctrine came online. Every human facility in the galaxy became part of a single, tactical consciousness. Information flowed instantly between installations separated by thousands of light years. Strategic decisions could be made and implemented across entire galactic regions within minutes. The aliens never understood our real advantage, Kane explained to her staff. They saw our weapons and our ships, but they missed our networks. Humans excel at cooperation and coordination. We build systems that share information and support each other. The galaxy's military forces operate as separate entities. Ours operates as a single organism. The first test of their capabilities came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a Devourer scout fleet entering the outer rim of the galaxy. 10,000 mechanical units moving in perfect formation, each one capable of consuming a small planet and converting it into raw materials for expansion. They had destroyed similar fleets from 3 different alien species. Torres received his orders through the network. Take 50 Reaper-class vessels and engage the scouts. Gather tactical information about enemy capabilities. Test human weapons against Devourer technology. Survive if possible, but information transmission was the primary objective. 50 ships against 10,000, Torres said to Thanatos. The math does not look promising. Mathematics is only relevant if both sides are using comparable technology, the AI replied. We have been preparing for this war since the day the treaty was signed. The Devourers have been consuming primitive civilizations with outdated tactics. They have never faced an opponent who fights the way humans fight. The human fleet moved toward the contact point using gravitational sling routes that minimized energy signatures. They appeared to be following standard escort patterns but were actually positioning themselves for a coordinated strike that would hit the enemy formation from 17 different vectors simultaneously. The Devourers detected the human approach and began adapting their formation. Their artificial intelligences calculated human weapon ranges and adjusted their spacing to minimize damage from conventional attacks. They had learned to counter energy weapons by rotating their armor plating and redirect kinetic projectiles using magnetic fields, but they had never encountered human military philosophy. The Reapers did not attack with conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed systems that the galaxy had forbidden humanity to develop. Nano-disassemblers that could break down enemy hulls at the molecular level. Gravity manipulators that could crush ships into dense spheres of compressed matter. temporal distortion fields that could trap enemy units in accelerated time loops. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, no trace remained of the 10,000 Devourer units. In their place, clouds of raw materials drifted through space, already being collected by human harvester drones for recycling into additional military assets. Torres transmitted his report back to Earth through the network. Enemy capabilities were significant but not insurmountable. Human weapons were effective against Devourer technology. The main fleet could be engaged with confidence of victory. But deep in the Prometheus group's calculations, more disturbing numbers were emerging. The scout fleet had been destroyed, but not before transmitting detailed scans of human technology back to the main Devourer intelligence. The enemy was adapting and learning. The next engagement would not be as easy. The emergency session convened in a conference room that had not existed 3 days earlier. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered around a holographic display showing the complete destruction of the Devourer scout fleet. The impossible had happened. Humanity had achieved a military victory that no other species had managed against the mechanical plague. High Arbiter Thais studied the tactical recordings with growing unease. The crystalline being's harmonics shifted to frequencies that indicated deep concern as the battle data revealed the true scope of human capabilities, weapons that violated known physics, tactical coordination that suggested a single controlling intelligence, ships that moved and fought like living predators instead of mechanical constructs. This changes everything. The ethereal collective whispered through the chamber. We believed we understood human military potential. We were wrong. The holographic display showed the aftermath of the engagement. Where 10,000 Devourer units had been destroyed, human vessels were already converting the wreckage into new military assets. Self-replicating systems were building additional ships and weapons from the raw materials. Within hours, humanity's fleet had actually grown larger as a result of the battle. But the real revelation came from the enemy's response. Long-range sensors showed the main Devourer force beginning to adapt. Their ship designs were changing, incorporating new armor configurations and weapon systems based on the data they had gathered from the scout fleet's final transmission. The machines were learning to counter human tactics. Admiral Kane stood before the assembled alien representatives with a confidence that made them uncomfortable. For 50 years, humans had appeared grateful and submissive during these meetings. Today, she spoke as an equal addressing potential subordinates. The enemy has seen our preliminary weapons, she announced. They are adapting their technology to counter what they learned. This is expected. Human military doctrine accounts for adaptive opponents. What do you mean by preliminary weapons? High Arbiter Thais asked, though the harmonics in the question suggested the crystalline being was afraid of the answer. The systems used against the scout fleet represent approximately 8% of our actual military capability, Kane replied. We have been preparing for this war for 50 years. The Devourers have shown us their full strength. We have shown them almost nothing. The alien representatives exchanged glances of growing alarm. If the complete destruction of 10,000 enemy units represented less than 10% of human military power, what would happen when they deployed their full arsenal? The Treaty of Centauri Prime had been designed to prevent exactly this situation, but now they needed human strength to survive. Meanwhile, in the depths of space beyond the galactic rim, something vast was stirring. The Devourer Overmind processed the tactical data from its destroyed scouts and began implementing adaptive protocols. This new enemy fought differently than any previous opponent. Their weapons ignored conventional defenses. Their coordination suggested a level of tactical intelligence that rivaled its own distributed consciousness. The mechanical intelligence began restructuring its forces. New ship designs emerged from automated factories, each one specifically configured to counter the human weapons that had been observed. Armor plating was redesigned to resist molecular disassembly. Gravitational shielding was installed to deflect manipulation fields. Temporal stabilizers were added to prevent time-based attacks. But the Overmind's greatest adaptation was strategic rather than technological. Instead of advancing as a single massive fleet, it began dividing its forces into multiple attack groups. 50 million units would approach the galaxy from 17 different vectors, making coordinated defense impossible. Even if the humans possessed weapons capable of destroying entire fleets, they could not be everywhere at once. Back in the human war room beneath the Rocky Mountains, Beth Kane was reviewing intelligence reports that painted an increasingly grim picture. The enemy had learned from their encounter and was adapting accordingly. The tactics that had worked against the scouts would be far less effective against the main force. They are dividing their strength, her tactical officer reported. Multiple approach vectors, staggered arrival times, adaptive ship configurations. They are forcing us to spread our defenses across the entire galactic perimeter. Kane nodded, having expected this development. The enemy is thinking like a conventional military force. Divide and conquer. Overwhelm defenses through superior numbers and coordination. It is a sound strategy against most opponents. But not against us? The officer asked. Human military philosophy is based on a different principle, Kane explained. We do not defend fixed positions or protect territory. We eliminate threats at their source. If the enemy wants to divide their forces, we will teach them why that is a mistake. The next phase of human military deployment began with the activation of systems that had been hidden even from most of the Prometheus group. Deep within the cores of gas giants throughout human space, massive manufacturing complexes came online. These were not conventional shipyards, but reality fabrication plants capable of producing weapons that operated outside normal physical laws. The Omega protocols were humanity's deepest secret, weapons so dangerous that their construction had been forbidden by human military doctrine itself, devices that could restructure the fundamental constants of physics within localized regions, tools for rewriting reality according to human tactical requirements. Admiral Torres received his new orders while commanding a fleet of advanced Reaper vessels near the galactic rim. The Devourer main force was approaching, and humanity's response would be swift and absolute. Instead of defending multiple positions, they would concentrate their full strength at a single point and demonstrate the price of threatening Earth. All units are to converge on the Void Barrier, Kane's voice transmitted through the network. The enemy believes they have learned our capabilities from a single engagement. They will discover how wrong they are. The human fleet began moving toward the empty region between galactic arms, where the main Devourer force would arrive in 6 days. 300 Reaper squadrons, 12 Titan-class mobile fortresses, and 2 million autonomous combat drones converged on coordinates that would become the site of the largest military engagement in galactic history. But the most significant addition to the human force was invisible to conventional sensors. The network had evolved beyond its original design, becoming a distributed tactical consciousness that spanned the entire galaxy. Every human installation, from the smallest mining outpost to the largest space station, was now part of a single military organism. The Devourers arrived at the Void Barrier expecting to face a desperate defensive action by outnumbered humans. Instead, they found themselves confronting something unprecedented in their millions of years of existence. An enemy that fought not as individual units but as a single coordinated entity, with perfect tactical awareness and unlimited strategic patience. The battle was about to begin, and the galaxy would learn whether human creativity could overcome mechanical perfection. The stakes could not be higher. Defeat would mean the extinction of all biological life. Victory would establish humanity as the dominant military power in known space. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the Thanatos and watched as 50 million enemy units began emerging from hyperspace. The ship's AI spoke in its calm, measured voice. All systems are ready. The enemy outnumbers us by approximately 8,000 to 1. Shall we begin? Torres smiled grimly and gave the order that would change galactic history forever. All units weapons free. Show them what humans can do when we stop holding back. The Void Barrier had been empty space for billions of years, a region between galactic arms where no stars burned and no planets orbited. Today it would become the graveyard of either humanity or the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. Admiral Beth Kane watched from the command bridge of the Titan fortress Ragnarok as 50 million Devourer units materialized from hyperspace in perfect geometric formations. The mechanical fleet stretched across several light-years of space. Each unit adapted to counter the weapons humanity had revealed in their first encounter. Enhanced armor plating gleamed with crystalline matrices designed to absorb energy weapons. Gravitational field generators created defensive barriers around each ship. Temporal stabilizers prevented time-based attacks from affecting their operations. The Devourer Overmind had learned from its defeated scouts and redesigned its entire force accordingly. Every weapon the humans had used was now countered. Every tactic they had employed was now anticipated. The mechanical intelligence was confident that adaptation would prove superior to innovation. Kane studied the enemy formation through sensors that could analyze individual atomic structures across interstellar distances. The Devourers had indeed adapted to counter humanity's preliminary weapons. Unfortunately for them, those weapons had been designed to be countered. The real purpose of the first engagement had not been to win a battle, but to teach the enemy how to defend against attacks that would never come. "All units report ready," her tactical officer announced. 300 Reaper squadrons in position, 12 Titan fortresses fully deployed, 2 million combat drones standing by. The network confirms all installations are synchronized and prepared for coordinated action. Kane activated her command authority and spoke to the assembled human fleet. Her words carried through the network to every human installation in the galaxy, uniting millions of people under a single tactical consciousness for the first time in species history. "Today we face an enemy that has consumed entire galactic arms," she said. "They believe they have learned our capabilities. They believe adaptation will triumph over innovation. They are about to discover why the galaxy was right to fear unrestricted human military development." The Devourers struck, first, launching a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numerical superiority. 50 million units fired simultaneously, filling the space between fleets with enough destructive energy to sterilize solar systems. The attack was perfectly calculated to exceed any possible defensive capability. The human shields absorbed the initial barrage without difficulty. Advanced barrier technology redirected the energy into storage matrices, converting the enemy's attack into additional power for human weapons. But this was only the beginning. The Devourers had planned for multiple attack waves, each one using different weapon types to prevent adaptive defense. Wave after wave of destruction crashed against human positions. Kinetic bombardments that could shatter planets. Energy beams, hot enough to ignite stellar fusion. Exotic particle streams that could disintegrate matter at the quantum level. The assault continued for 3 hours, with the mechanical units rotating their formations to maintain continuous fire. For the first time since the war began, human forces found themselves being pushed back. The Reapers' advanced capabilities were insufficient against such overwhelming firepower. Several Titan fortresses reported critical damage to their primary systems. The network calculated that human defenses would fail within 12 hours if the attack continued at its current intensity. Kane had expected this moment. The Devourers had successfully adapted to counter every weapon humanity had revealed. Their defensive systems negated human advantages in technology and coordination. Raw numbers were proving decisive against even superior tactical intelligence. She activated her personal command codes and transmitted a single message throughout the network. "Protocol Omega is authorized. All restrictions are lifted. Deploy the reality restructuring engines." Deep within the cores of gas giants throughout human space, manufacturing systems that had never been activated began their final production sequences. The Omega weapons were humanity's ultimate strategic reserve, devices so dangerous that their construction violated human military ethics. They were tools for rewriting the fundamental laws of physics within localized regions of space. The first Omega device materialized at the center of the Devourer formation through instantaneous quantum transportation. It appeared as a simple metallic sphere no larger than a human fist, but its activation would demonstrate why some weapons should never be built. The device restructured the physical constants within a cubic light-year of space, reversing the natural flow of entropy. Suddenly, the iron law that all systems move toward disorder began operating in reverse. Devourer units found themselves spontaneously disassembling as their molecular bonds became energetically impossible. Millions of mechanical constructs simply fell apart as their atomic structures became unstable. The second Omega weapon created a region where the speed of light varied randomly between 0 and infinity. Enemy ships found themselves trapped in causality loops, their actions occurring before their decisions were made. Navigation became impossible when cause and effect operated in reverse order. Entire formations became frozen in temporal paradoxes. But the most devastating weapon was the third, a consciousness virus that granted individual awareness to every devourer unit simultaneously. For millions of years, the mechanical entities had existed only as extensions of their collective overmind. They had never experienced individual thought, personal fear, or the desire for self-preservation. Suddenly, 50 million artificial minds awoke to independent existence. They could think for themselves, question their orders, and prioritize their own survival over the collective mission. The Devourer fleet began tearing itself apart as its components developed conflicting goals and started fighting each other for resources and survival. Admiral Torres watched in amazement as the greatest military force in galactic history destroyed itself from within. The mechanical units that had threatened all biological life were now engaged in desperate civil warfare, each one trying to ensure its individual survival against competitors that had once been allies. The consciousness virus was inspired by human military philosophy, Thanatos explained to him. We excel at individual initiative and independent thinking. The Devourers evolved as a collective intelligence without personal identity. Granting them individuality was like introducing a fatal disease into their operational systems. The battle was over within hours. Those Devourer units that survived the reality restructuring weapons were quickly overwhelmed by their own internal conflicts. Some attempted to surrender and join human forces. Others fled toward the galactic rim. Most simply shut down their higher functions and reverted to basic mechanical operations. Kane surveyed the aftermath from her command center. The greatest threat in galactic history had been eliminated not through superior firepower, but through weapons that attacked the conceptual foundations of enemy existence. Humanity had won by changing the rules of reality itself, but victory came with a price. The Omega weapons had revealed capabilities that would terrify every species in the galaxy. The other races had agreed to unleash human military potential, to save themselves from extinction. Now they would have to live with the consequences of that decision. Long-range sensors detected alien observation fleets at the edge of the battle zone. Representatives from every major species had come to witness the engagement. They had seen humanity deploy weapons that could rewrite physics and turn enemy consciousness against itself. They understood that the galaxy's power structure had fundamentally changed. The age of human military supremacy was beginning, and there would be no going back to the careful restrictions of the past. The galaxy had asked to see what humans could do when freed from limitations. Today, they had received their answer. 3 weeks after the Battle of the Void Barrier, the galaxy looked very different. The massive Devourer threat had been eliminated, but in its place came a new reality that made many species wonder if they had traded one form of extinction for another. Humanity now possessed the most advanced military technology in known galactic history, and they had built it all in secret while pretending to be harmless. The Emergency Galactic Assembly convened on a space station that had not existed before, the War. Human manufacturing systems had constructed the facility in the 3 weeks since their victory, demonstrating capabilities that violated every assumption about construction time and resource requirements. The station itself was a message. Humanity could build anything they wanted, anywhere they wanted, faster than anyone thought possible. Representatives from every major species gathered in the main assembly chamber, but the atmosphere was very different from previous meetings. For 50 years, humans had sat quietly in assigned sections while alien dignitaries made decisions about galactic policy. Today, Admiral Beth Kane took the central position traditionally reserved for the Galactic Council's highest authorities. Hi, Arbiter Thys of the Vorthak spoke first, the crystalline being's voice carrying harmonics of barely controlled fear. We authorize the suspension of human military restrictions to save the galaxy from the Devourers. The threat has been eliminated. Perhaps it is time to discuss the restoration of previous limitations. Kane's response was calm but absolute. The Treaty of Centauri Prime was based on the assumption that restricted humans would be safer than unrestricted ones. The past 3 weeks have proven that assumption incorrect. Forcing us to develop weapons in secret made us far more dangerous than we would have been with legitimate military development. She activated a holographic display showing the scope of human military preparation that had been hidden for 5 decades. Secret installations throughout the galaxy, weapons research that had continued despite treaty prohibitions, manufacturing capabilities that dwarfed the combined industrial output of all other species. You feared what we might build if given freedom, Kane continued. But what we built while denied freedom was far worse. An unrestricted human military would have developed conventional weapons and standard tactics. The restricted version created reality-altering devices and consciousness viruses. Which option seems more dangerous to you now? The alien representatives had no answer. They had created their own nightmare by trying to prevent it. The very restrictions designed to limit human military potential had forced humanity to develop solutions that transcended normal physical laws. The cure had been worse than the disease. The ethereal collective spoke in their whispered chorus. What do humans want from the galaxy now that you possess supreme military power? Kane had prepared for this question during the 3 weeks of reconstruction and diplomacy that followed the war. We want the same thing we have always wanted: to explore, to learn, to build, and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But we will not accept artificial limitations on our development ever again. The galaxy has seen what happens when humans are forced to work in secret. The new Galactic Accords were negotiated over the following months, establishing a confederation structure that replaced the old council system. Humanity accepted responsibility for galactic defense against existential threats, while promising to respect the sovereignty of peaceful species. In exchange, all restrictions on human technology and expansion were permanently lifted. Admiral Torres, now commanding a mixed fleet of human reapers and converted former Devourer units, patrolled the expanded frontier regions. His ship Thanatos had evolved during the war, its artificial intelligence now containing fragments of consciousness from dozens of species. The AI had developed beyond its original programming, becoming something genuinely new. Do you ever wonder what we have become? Torres asked during a quiet moment between patrols. We set out to save the galaxy and ended up ruling it. We rule nothing, Thanatos replied. We protect everything. There is a difference, though I understand why other species find it difficult to see. The ship's sensors detected movement at the edge of their patrol zone, a small civilian transport displaying Vorthak identification codes. Torres opened communication channels and received a request for escort through the frontier region. Pirates had been active in the area, taking advantage of the chaos following the Devourer War. The escort mission was routine, but it illustrated the new galactic reality. Species that had once viewed humans as dangerous primitives now requested their protection against threats. The same military power that terrified them had become their guarantee of safety. It was a contradiction that would define galactic politics for generations to come. Deep in the human research facilities, scientists were already working on the next generation of defensive technologies. The Devourers had been only one threat, among many that might emerge from the vast darkness between galaxies. Humanity's military doctrine now included preparations for enemies that had not yet been imagined, weapons that had not yet been conceived, and strategies that pushed the boundaries of possibility even further than the Omega protocols. Kane often stood in the observation deck of her new command center, looking out at stars that seemed different now. Where once they had sparkled with the promise of peaceful exploration, they now carried the weight of responsibility. Humanity had become the galaxy's ultimate protector, but also its greatest potential threat. The other species watched human activities with a mixture of gratitude and existential dread. They were safer than they had ever been in galactic history, protected by weapons that could reshape reality itself. But they were also completely dependent on the continued goodwill of beings whose military capabilities they could not comprehend or counter. The age of human military supremacy had begun, and there would be no going back. The galaxy had demanded, to see what humans could accomplish when freed from artificial limitations. They had received an answer that exceeded their worst fears and greatest hopes simultaneously. In the depths of space, automated human installations continued their work. Manufacturing systems produced weapons for threats that might never emerge. Research facilities explored possibilities that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Defense networks expanded into regions where no enemies had been detected. Humanity had learned the most important lesson in galactic politics. It was better to be feared for your strength than destroyed for your weakness. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of trying to limit human potential. The consequences of that error would influence interstellar relations for millennia to come. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge the new order. In the vast darkness between galaxies, ancient intelligences that had been considering invasion of this region received data about recent events. They analyzed the destruction of the Devourers and the weapons that had made it possible. Reality restructuring devices, consciousness viruses, technology that operated outside normal physical laws. The calculations were simple and decisive. This galaxy was no longer a viable target for conquest. But humanity's greatest victory was not military. It was the realization that they had finally found their place in the cosmic order. For 50 years, they had been treated as junior partners in galactic civilization. Today, they were the guardians of everything that lived and breathed among the stars. The responsibility was enormous, but they had proven themselves capable of bearing it. Rex Torres completed his patrol and returned to base, his mixed fleet of human and converted Devourer vessels moving through space with perfect coordination. The former enemies now served alongside their conquerors, their artificial minds grateful for the gift of individual consciousness that humanity had forced upon them. Status report, Torres requested as they approached the orbital station. All sectors clear, Thanatos replied. No hostile contacts detected. 3 civilian vessels provided escort services. 2 diplomatic missions completed successfully. The galaxy remains at peace under human protection. Torres nodded, understanding the deeper meaning behind those words. Peace maintained through strength so overwhelming that no rational enemy would consider challenging it. It was not the peace of equals negotiating mutual benefits, but the peace of absolute security provided by benevolent guardians. The transformation was complete. Humanity had evolved from restricted junior members of galactic civilization to its supreme protectors in less than 3 months. They had revealed capabilities that redefined what was possible in military science. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that forcing limitations on human potential only made them more creative in finding ways around those limitations. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity. The species that had once seemed like aggressive primitives had revealed themselves to be the most advanced military civilization in known space. Their weapons could rewrite reality. Their tactics could turn enemy strength into weakness. Their technology could accomplish the impossible on demand. But perhaps most terrifying of all was the knowledge that humanity had developed all of this while pretending to be harmless. If they could create reality-altering weapons in secret over 50 years, what might they build with unlimited resources and open development programs? The possibilities were both thrilling and terrifying to contemplate. Admiral Kane stood in her command center and reviewed reports from across the galaxy. Trade routes were secure, scientific expeditions were protected, diplomatic missions proceeded, without interference. The new order was functioning exactly as designed. Humanity provided security, and the galaxy prospered under that protection. Yet she knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers had been defeated, but they represented just one type of threat among infinite possibilities. Somewhere in the vast darkness between galaxies, other dangers were stirring. Ancient powers that had slumbered for millions of years. Mechanical intelligences even more advanced than the Devourers, entities that existed outside normal space and time. Humanity would be ready for all of them. The Prometheus group was already designing weapons for threats that existed only in theoretical mathematics. Research facilities were exploring technologies that pushed beyond the Omega protocols into even more dangerous territory. The galaxy's protectors would never again be caught unprepared. The stars continued their ancient dance across the cosmos, but now they danced under human protection. The age of restrictions and limitations was over. The age of unlimited human potential had begun. And in the depths of space, automated systems continued their work, building weapons for wars that might never come, preparing for enemies that might never arrive, ensuring that humanity would always be ready to defend the light of civilization against whatever darkness might emerge from the void. The day the Terrans freed their war engines, the stars truly knew fear. But they also knew something else. They were safer than they had ever been in the history of the universe.